think investing in health tech is like trying to diagnose a rare disease?
To get very granular when you start looking at what a startup is trying to do and where they will create value within the healthcare value chain, right? And healthcare in US and in many other countries tends to be a little different than pure technology or aviation, because in healthcare, if insurance is not going to pay for something, right, it's very hard to take that idea off the ground and make it $1 billion industry. And a lot of times I see founders, when they transition from being in tech to in health tech, they make that mistake of not realizing what it takes to actually succeed in healthcare. And sometimes the best of products that have been launched with the best of intentions don't take off or not successful because either the surgeons can't use them, or it increases the time for a nurse to provide care to her patients, or it increases the time for a hospital administrator, right? And so the best of products don't fly. So it's like diagnostics with multiple layers, like an onion, where you have to keep peeling off the layers to really understand, okay, this product might be helping patients, but the key user is going to be a nurse and not a surgeon, or it's going to be a hospital administrator and not a surgeon and not a nurse, right? And that level of understanding is very important. So if I come across founders and products that haven't done their due diligence, I get a little annoyed, because I'm like, really? In 2023, why would you not actually go ahead and talk to some people in these health systems and talk to patients as well? I recently signed on to invest in a company which is helping with lung cancer diagnosis and treatment, and helping with health equity in that area. And the reason I made that investment is because I kept asking these questions. It was like, but aren't you going to increase the workload for the nurses? And hospitals are already stretched thin. And there's like, no, we provide the nurse with the solution so that you're not stretching the health system. And they've taken care of like these minute details, but very important details. So I go in with a diagnostic lens, but my lens is very, very critical as an investor. And I don't mind asking the hard questions when I'm doing that.
Excellent. So since you are saying,
so one is looking at the broader economic climate, and the other is looking at the time of Gen AI, which is the time is now, and it's going to remain now for the next year or two, right? So if you look at the broader economic climate, if you're going to go and raise money right now, tech companies' valuations are depressed, right? So if you really believe in your technology, and I think your technology, JB, for example, is something that you absolutely believe in, right? If you could somehow survive at the pace that you want to survive and grow at without raising a lot of external funding, as an investor, I would love to invest right now, because I can ask more equity for the same amount of money that I would put in 2 years ago, right? Maybe double the equity, if not double, at least 40% more, right? And so that's the economic valuation side. I would say if you could wait it out till January, all the signs are that post JP Morgan, things are going to pick up. That it's going to be JP Morgan, all the activity in healthcare is going to lead to people who've been sitting on dry powder to say, oh my God, I can't resist anymore. I'm drooling. I got to take part in these deals. And that's going to have a ripple effect. I do see that coming. The second is the Gen AI side. Now, on the investor circle side, I see two kinds of investors in Gen AI. One who truly understand the potential and know exactly where the tech has to be used to create value. And then there's a second set of investors like anybody else who've suddenly overnight become experts in generative AI and everything Gen AI. I would say if you can get to investors who truly understand the potential of the technology, and if you have something that leverages Gen AI truly, because I'm mentoring a couple of companies that are not in healthcare, they're industry agnostic, but they leverage Gen AI in a manner where they could really have a big impact across many, many industries. And if you can get to the right investors who understand the impact, then you'll be in good shape, because some of the better investors aren't being very greedy as well. So you've got to avoid the greedy ones, the ones who actually don't truly understand the technology. If they have nobody on their board, if they're a big investor and nobody on the team is a Gen AI expert, then you've got to question that, right? And so I think my advice to startups and founders is be very picky in who you go to for money.
Yeah.
Because the lens that I put in when I'm investing, even if I'm investing angel amounts of 20, 25K, is that I look for two things. When I look at the long term and try to evaluate if this relationship is going to work with the startup founder is, one, are they open to advice? Because if you're investing money in someone who's not open to advice, because tomorrow you may be in a position to open big doors for them, but if they don't listen to you, it's a waste of your money and your energy, right? At the same time, I don't want them to be clingy and too dependent. If I open a door for them, they should be able to go and run with it and make something out of it, right? Or at least give it their best shot and not have to come back to me for everything. I don't mind mentoring people, but if you're doing something substantial in healthcare, and if you can't take mentoring advice, assimilate it back and drive into a passion to do it something on your own, then why would I invest in you? So I look for that fine balance in founders where, yes, you should be open to advice, but I shouldn't be mentoring you 24/7. I don't have the time for that, and I don't want to do that. So that's the balance. And maybe that goes back to the original
In startups, how important is IP for you?
question. I was going to say it's everything, but I would say it's like 80% of the consideration, right? Because I invest in the field of medtech and medical devices, right? Some of these devices take years to get to FDA approvals. It's multi-million-dollar clinical trials. And if you don't have an IP, anybody can go ahead and replicate your product. I mean, information gets out very quickly. It's very hard to keep things secure and safe and closed in an environment like today. So IP is very, very important. In fact, sometimes what investors will do is when they talk to a founder who's filed 3 or 4 really good IPs around the product, what we also advise them is to go and start filing IPs to block other players from getting close to your product in the future, because you need a runway of 8 to 10 years sometimes to be able to get to good amount of sales for you to make money and all of that, right? And in that context, having a really great IP lawyer is very, very important. I think a great IP lawyer can make or break your IP strategy. And it's money well spent. It's really something that should be part of your game. It's not an afterthought. If it is an afterthought, then it's a mistake, I think. Obviously, it changes by the field you're in, but in the field where I invest in healthcare, it's very, very critical. It's harder to do IP management for health tech platforms. It's easier to do it in devices, but it's not impossible. Let's move into health tech without the understanding that healthcare is a longer game. It's a game of patience. It really is. If you don't have the patience, if you're not playing 5 chess moves ahead, healthcare is not the right game to be in. So I've been in situations where, I'm talking about a company I've invested with another investor, and they're like, "What? It's year 2," and they're like, "What's the revenue?" And I'm like point blank looking at them thinking, what are you talking about? Like, we don't even talk about revenue 5 years into the game. What is this? And, I talk about market potential at that point. And then I realized, well, they're moving into health tech, but they really are true tech investors. And SaaS companies, pure play SaaS companies, will have revenue in year 2, year 3, whatever it's going to be. So I think the IP question becomes very, very much relevant to the field you're in, the vertical, the industry you're in, and learn about your industry as a founder, and then make your decisions. And learn, if you're an investor, learn about the new industry you're about to enter, in terms of expectations and returns and revenues and all of that.